Well, that's municipal, so I don't. 3 people came up to me yesterday and said,
I predicted we would be here in show the time.
contracted until December.
I find everything.
Just getting over about a prostate cancer. No, I just finished treatments last Wednesday.
Yeah, except you know, they're 70 years old, and you know, they grew up there, and so you know, their thing was it's just not the same anymore.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. Thanks especially to Attorney General Mays, Director Heredia of Access, Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew Stone, and President Javier of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, and the many tribal leaders who came, many from a distance, to join us for this critically important announcement. Today, we are announcing actions against over 100 providers of behavioral health, residential, and outpatient treatment services that we have credible reason to believe have have defrauded the state's Medicaid program of hundreds of millions of dollars. Due to these credible allegations, yesterday, Access suspended payment to these providers. For years, these providers have allegedly defrauded the state of millions of dollars while creating a large-scale humanitarian crisis that disproportionately affects Arizona's tribal communities. It's alleged that these providers target the most vulnerable people, offering them the false promise that they will be given food, housing, and access to treatment at a group living home or rehab facility. People are then left in these facilities without proper access to health care and treatment services. Instead, they're allowed and sometimes encouraged to continue using drugs and alcohol. Often, they're not allowed to leave the facility or contact relatives. Meanwhile, the providers fraudulently bill Medicaid for addiction treatment and other healthcare services. While we are still working to assess the scope of people affected, it may be in the thousands. However, due to suspected ghost billing by these fraudulent entities, the exact scope of the problem still remains unclear. Prior to my administration, Access had taken a piecemeal approach to targeting these fraudulent providers. The prior administration did this on a case-by-case basis, never implementing the systemic overhauls necessary to root out this problem, and failing to deliver true accountability. Unfortunately, this approach led to fraudulent providers continuing to exploit tribal communities for their own financial gain. I have heard stories of the pain and suffering that these exploited individuals have gone through. Desperate people struggling with addiction, picked up off the street and dropped in a home with drugs, alcohol, and no treatment available. People cut off from their families and trapped in a cycle of dependency because of a fraudulent medical provider. People with nowhere to go and nobody to turn to, isolated by these organizations. People had to escape out of windows and jump over fences in the middle of the night just to access a phone to reach the outside world. Under my administration, this will change. I am proud of the swift action that Access Director Carmen Heredia has taken to investigate these financial wrongdoings and develop a comprehensive, holistic plan to stop them. Working hand in hand with the Attorney General's Office, law enforcement, Access, tribal leaders, and community partners, we are going to prosecute existing bad actors, ensure that wraparound services are delivered to the people affected by provider closures, and enact systemic reforms in the Access billing system to root out this kind of fraudulent billing moving forward. To start, I wanted Access to make several operational changes, including a third-party forensic audit of all claims since 2019 and an examination of AHCCCS licensing measures, new reporting systems for claims that cause concern, and additional fraud prevention measures to better secure our Medicaid system. We have no reason to believe that Access members are involved in this fraud, and we will not entertain any policies that will make it harder for people to participate in Medicaid. To the individuals and families affected by these suspensions, my heart is broken by the pain that you have been forced to endure. The state of Arizona believes you. We stand with you, and we are committed to working with you to solve this problem and get people home safe. We have created a dedicated member hotline for you to report missing loved ones, flag fraudulent facilities, and be connected to behavioral health specialists. If you are affected by these closures or need to report a missing loved one, call 211 to be connected to the proper resources. And I have to acknowledge the MMIP task force and its predecessor, the MMIP study committee, for the work that they've done. Thank you for your work helping bring to light these fraudulent providers and the stories of those who have been affected by them. I look forward to our continued partnership in addressing this crisis. And finally, I want to stress that this is just the first step in a process of eradicating this abuse, the abuse, fraud, and corruption by these opportunistic providers. As I stated, the fraud we have identified has been ingrained in the system for years without proper action being taken. It will be a fight, but one that my administration and I are fully committed to. We will take the actions necessary to bring an end, not just to the fraudulent activity, but also to the humanitarian crisis that it has created. And again, thank you to everyone for joining us on this. I know you're here because you're just as committed as we are. And now I'll hand it off to Attorney General Mays.
Thank you, Governor Hobbs and Director Heredia, and thank you all for being here today. As Governor Hobbs said, our new administrations are taking aggressive action to stop fraudulent Medicaid billing practices by scam artists and criminals masquerading as legitimate behavioral health providers. But before I get into the details of the investigations that led us to this point, I too would like to thank the members of the Indigenous Peoples Caucus and our state's tribal leaders for continuing to advocate for changes to a system that allow these alleged crimes to occur, harming vulnerable individuals and deceiving taxpayers. For nearly 3 years, special agents and investigators at the Arizona Attorney General's Office, the Access Office of Inspector General, and our law enforcement partners at the federal level have been investigating, indicting, pursuing financial remedies, and attempting to disrupt these fraudulent billing schemes. But it has been a game of whack-a-mole because of the inability and unwillingness of the previous administration to address the structural vulnerabilities inherent in the fee-for-service billing model of Access's American Indian Health Plan. Despite this challenge, to this date there have been more than 45 indictments and upwards of $75 million seized or recovered. And how have these schemes worked? They began with fraudulent treatment facilities recruiting Native Americans, typically those residing on a reservation or part of the urban homeless population. These vulnerable individuals were incentivized to participate in this, quote, treatment at an outpatient clinic with offers of things like free food, cash incentives, or free rent. Keep in mind, patients of these facilities could be in crisis, and are extremely vulnerable, making it all that much more heartbreaking. Once the recruited patients arrived at or were taken to these supposed treatment facilities, a simple intake process obtaining personal information occurred, principally an Access ID card. If the potential patient was not yet eligible for benefits under the American Indian Health Plan, the fraudulent behavioral health facilities contacted Access by phone. They then obtained eligibility for the patient based on the unchallenged assertion that the patient was eligible for the plan simply by being Native American. The bad actors used these people to egregiously overbill Access for treatment services they did not render or grossly misrepresented. In many instances, additional facilities were utilized by those executing these schemes to house patients overnight perpetually. This allowed fraudsters to control the locations of the patients, to maximize fraud opportunities, and to allow the schemes to continue even after the facilities were shut down or suspended by Access. As I said earlier, whack-a-mole. The Medicaid fraud has become so rampant that some of these scammers didn't even bill Access for people they were in contact with. They simply purchased lists of names and dates of birth of people and used those to bill Access. They also billed for services that were impossible to render. In one case, we discovered that Access had been billed for more than 13 hours a day for alcohol rehabilitation services to a 4-year-old. This poor child was not in one of the facilities and did not need alcohol rehabilitation, let's be clear. But their Access ID was used to rip off taxpayers. In another instance, a fraudulent biller submitted over $1 million in alleged services for a woman and her 2 children over the course of 1 year. In some instances, services to deceased individuals have even been billed to Access. Services have also been billed to people or for people who were in jail at the time or people who were verifiably in another state. We believe that at a minimum, hundreds of millions of dollars have been lost to these fraudulent schemes, though the amount could be higher than that. But the human impact of this fraud is the most heartbreaking of all. While these scammers are using random IDs to bill for millions of dollars worth of services, thousands of Arizonans are in real need. Some have been living in these facilities or homes while not being provided the services they need. Some of them, and we do not know how many, may be considered missing by their families because they may have been unable to contact family members to tell them where they are. The bottom line is that this never should have been allowed to happen. The previous administrations were asleep at the switch, asleep at the wheel. The Ducey administration was at best negligent, while they allowed scam artists and fraudsters to take advantage of the antiquated, outdated systems and incompetent management of Access. In the wake of their ineffectiveness, some of the most vulnerable individuals in our state were harmed and taxpayers paid for it. Unfortunately, former Attorney General Brnovich did not provide the people that served under him with the leadership they needed either. He and Governor Ducey should have done what Governor Hobbs and I are doing today, taking aggressive action to shut down the money supply to these fraudulent actors and working to ensure that we root out fraud and abuse in our state's Medicaid program. This was a stunning failure of government. There is no other way to say it. But it ends now. Over the past month, Access has implemented, and in some cases is in the process of implementing, new controls and procedures that the attorneys and special agents at the Attorney General's office have long been recommending that Access implement. For 3 years, my agents and my lawyers have been pleading with Access to implement these reforms and controls to no avail. Most certainly, we have shut off the flow of cash to fraudulent billers that have allowed thousands of Native Americans and others to be victimized and exploited. My office will insistently encourage improvements so we put this problem and all criminals out of business in Arizona. To be clear, I am keenly aware that fraud schemes will evolve and can take myriad forms. This is why I have directed our HCCCS section, Healthcare Fraud and Abuse section, to meet with Access on a regular basis and to provide me with frequent updates with respect to fee-for-service data and key perceived billing irregularities. And our efforts, and this is a crucial point, our efforts will strengthen the legitimate behavioral health treatment centers doing things the right way. Our actions will dramatically protect more of our Medicaid dollars from being stolen by illicit enterprises. The Attorney General's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, which is represented here today, and our local and federal law enforcement partners will continue our investigations and prosecute those guilty of crimes to the fullest extent of the law. We stand ready to work with Access on all credible allegations of fraud going forward, and we are currently working on over 100 cases in various stages. These cases are complex and require extensive investigation and prosecutorial work and resources. But make no mistake, we are conducting thorough criminal investigations, and we will aggressively prosecute these cases. As we move forward, we are coordinating with tribal law enforcement and leaders on these efforts, as well as the Department of Child Safety. I have also been in coordination with the Attorney General of the Navajo Nation, Ethel Branch. I would like her to actually come up and join us. Ethel, are you here? Because she has some words to say about the Navajo Nation's response. Please stand next to the President. I am extraordinarily grateful for the painstaking work to address these issues by law enforcement, particularly the attorneys, agents, and investigators of the Arizona Attorney General's office. They are here with me today. I also want to thank all Native American advocacy groups, those who have done the right thing, called to report crimes, sent referrals and concern, and have legitimately taken care of those who need it most. Those actions and all those who partner with our office have provided critical information that has assisted and continues to assist in these investigations. And I want to personally thank Senator Teresa Taffley, for her advocacy on this issue. She has been extremely helpful to me and to my team over the past several months. And finally, I want to thank Governor Hobbs and her leadership and for appointing Director Heredia. I am confident she will continue to skillfully implement these new procedures and help put these criminal organizations out of business. And now I want to turn it over actually to Ethel and to the President to say a few remarks as well.
Thank you so much, General Mays. It's an honor to be here with everyone. I'm fortunate to be here under these circumstances. I just want to also offer my thanks to my sister, Senator Taffley, to the Governor for her leadership, for the Attorney General for her leadership on this matter, for the federal law enforcement, the U.S. Attorney that is involved with this as well. From the Navajo Nation's perspective, we stand ready to assist in whatever way we can and to coordinate our own law enforcement and our own response. The nation is launching Operation Rainbow Bridge, and we're going to have an on-site emergency operations center here in the Valley. We anticipate large numbers of the impacted individuals, numbers. So we'll be here to receive our relatives and make sure that they are smoothly transitioned into licensed facilities where they'll actually receive the services they believe that they would be receiving when they enter these vehicles and were transported south to the Valley. Additionally, we will have resources available for those individuals who want to return home. So we'll be coordinating with all of the state agencies and entities that are involved in that process. So again, this will be Operation Rainbow Bridge. I also want to thank the President and his staff for mobilizing our team. We were mobilized last week, and so we have plans underway. We'll have a website, a Facebook page, and additional information. We'll be coordinating with the 211 resources as well. So thank you to everyone involved in coordinating and making sure that that this stops, number one, and then number two, that there's a smooth transition and that our relatives who need these services are able to have their needs met in the appropriate fashion and that our family members are safely returned home. So everyone for all that everyone is doing and for everyone's concern. Thank you very much.
Gosh, I'm doomed. My name is Martin Hardbeer. I'm the president for the Salt River Female Maricopa Indian Community. You know, this morning, I want to thank Governor Hobbs, Attorney General Mays, and the tribal leaders that are here. I want to thank you for holding this important event to address the crisis that is occurring in our tribal communities. This crisis is a direct result of the predatory practices of many behavioral health facilities that have targeted our tribal members that are most in need. I want to thank you personally for the hard work that you and your teams have done over the last couple of months to help resolve this crisis. Governor Hobbs, although your administration has been in office for only a few short months, we commend your ability to recognize the problem and direct state agencies to take action. And I would like to acknowledge Director Heredia, Director of Access, for her leadership on this issue. We know that the actions that are taken today will continue to have an impact on our tribal members. As tribal nations, we know that it is important to put in place our own plans on how to deal with members that may be displaced. As a tribal leader, we know we must do our part to ensure our community members are safe. For example, our community has established a team that includes members from our Department of Health and Human Services, our Community Development Department, our Police Department, and our Communication team that are all working to provide services to community members that may be displaced. Our Police Department will continue to communicate with the FBI and others as the crimes may include missing and murdered Indigenous people. In addition, our team is prepared to provide emergency shelter to those in need. We are also fortunate to have a residential treatment shelter in our community for those in need. Because these facilities impact each of our communities, all tribal leaders have a responsibility to continue to partner with the Governor and Attorney General to make sure our tribal people are safe. Unfortunately, many of these predatory behavioral health facilities have and continue to take advantage of populations that are most at risk, only to enrich themselves. In closing, for those that are watching, especially members from our tribal communities, I hope you can see the representatives from the tribe that are here. I want to thank Mr. Jason Chavez, Governor Hobbs' tribal liaison, for the work that he has done in preparing us to be here today, keeping us informed of what is happening at the state level. I want to thank all the tribal leaders that are here for their comments on the issue that we're facing. And in closing, I just want to again thank Governor Hobbs for the work that she's doing as the governor. As was stated, this has been going on for quite a while. It's been brought to our attention as tribal leaders of what has been going on. We've tried to voice our concerns. So Governor Hobbs, thank you for moving forward on this issue. And all we can do as tribal leaders is to continue to extend thoughts and prayers for those that may be involved or displaced because of what is happening. So with that, thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Access in the Arizona Attorney General's office became aware of potential fraudulent billing practices, including significant increases in billing for outpatient behavioral health services. These circumstances triggered a multi-agency review, an investigation of potential fraud, waste, and abuse. Ultimately, this led Access to connect the irregular billing of these services with the activity targeting tribal communities and other vulnerable Arizonans. To say that we are appalled by activities that targeted tribal communities is an understatement. This is atrocious, and we are taking swift action to stop bad actors from exploiting members and abusing the Medicaid system. I do want to emphasize that this is a complex, resource-intensive issue. We are working together in cooperation with our esteemed Attorney General Chris Mays, as well as multiple agencies and law enforcement represented here today. First and foremost, we have to make sure that Access members can receive the services they need and deserve. To that end, we have instituted a hotline at 211 that will provide guidance for affected members when they have questions about their Medicaid services. We will promote 211 Press 7 with an outreach campaign to educate affected members. We have also worked to equip law enforcement agencies with guidance and materials to help any individual they may come into contact with who's been targeted. Second, we have suspended payments to approximately 100 Medicaid providers based on credible allegations of fraud. This is the first step of required action under federal law. And we are working closely with the Arizona Attorney General's Office, Healthcare Fraud and Abuse Section, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Internal Revenue Service through these ongoing investigations. As the Director of Access, I will not tolerate fraud of any kind in our Medicaid system. We must protect our critical safety net for our most vulnerable citizens and ensure continued access to healthcare services. In addition to other planned operational changes, Access has enacted a holistic, system-wide strategies to find and eliminate fraudulent billing claims, including recommendations from the Arizona Attorney General's Office, like moving certain provider types to high-risk category for new applicants, and revalidating providers, which requires on-site visits, fingerprinting, background checks, a registration fee, and additional disclosures. We've also created a trend report of all providers registering for the at-risk provider types, and we are closely monitoring for any billing anomalies. And for claims that are coming directly to Access for payment, we are reviewing all existing claim edits which differ from national standards and are setting specific rates for by report billing that pay a percentage of the total billed amount instead of a standard rate. We've implemented a new system reporting to flag concerning claims that are high volume, services per day, or services to minors, as mentioned, for review prior to payment. And we're setting billing thresholds to deny claims for multiple services that should not be billed on the same day and more. In addition to these safeguards, we will be working with law enforcement and the Arizona Attorney General and federal authorities to enhance our fraud detection capabilities. We take our responsibility seriously, and we will work with our valued partners and stakeholders to ensure that our system is secure and that our members are protected.
Good morning. My name is Andy Stone. I'm the Chief Financial Crime and Public Corruption Section of the United States Attorney's Office. And on behalf of the United States Attorneys of the District of Arizona, Gary Rustano, and our office, I want to thank our state and tribal and federal partners with whom we've been working with on these matters. The United States Attorney's Office has been working these cases federally since last fall, as we have received allegations that some of these bad actors have been targeting Native Americans. These are ongoing investigations, so we can't discuss the details today, but we want to thank the FBI, along with our other federal agency partners for their diligent efforts. The United States Attorney's Office is pleased at the success of the collaboration among so many different healthcare and law enforcement agencies at the state, tribal, and federal levels. It is this type of teamwork that will allow us to protect the most vulnerable in our state. In addition, it helps send a message to these unscrupulous providers that their fraudulent activity will not be tolerated. The United States Attorney's Office is proud to be working alongside these law enforcement partners, and we remain committed to obtaining justice.
All right, everybody, we're gonna start some Q&A. Please raise your hands and we can, I'll call on everyone. Is there?
Oh, hi, yes, I'm Stephanie Ennis from the Arizona Republic. You said hundreds of millions of dollars. Can you be more specific about that? Yeah, I wish I could be more specific about that. I mean, this is part of the travesty and outrageousness of this scam. I don't think it is too much to say that this is one of the biggest scandals in the history of the state of Arizona when it comes to our government. Our office estimates that it is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It could go higher than that, and I don't want to put a number on it, but let me give you a sense of it. So Access has been keeping track of some of the main billing accounts. And if I can find that sheet, I'll share it with you. And of course, this is one of the reasons for the audit. I don't know if you've ever mentioned it, but Access is engaging in an audit of its systems, and we will be assisting them. I think that the people of Arizona deserve, at a minimum, a final report on this, and assessing the total damage. I would assume the federal government is going to want to know where the Medicaid money went as well. I believe there's no other state in the country where this level of Medicaid fraud occurred in an American Indian fee-for-service program. But, you know, for instance, in fiscal year 2019, the BH outpatient clinic code, which is one of the main codes through which these billers were using, billed $53,570,000 to Access. That same line item in fiscal year 2020 was $132,600,000. Fiscal year 2021, it was $291 million. And fiscal year 2022, it was $668 million. That is exponential growth in this program. Now, I can't stand here and tell you exactly how much of that growth represents fraud, because some of it is legitimate providers. But our agents will tell you, who are standing here in the room, that is extraordinary growth, it is unusual, it is suspicious, and it's why we indicted more than 40 people over the last 3 years. It's why we seized and recovered $75 million from these fraudulent actors. And it's why today the governor and I took the step of yesterday sending out more than 100, with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI, 100 CAF letters and 15 target letters to organizations. So, you know, I believe that it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, but it could top, it could go well beyond that.
Another for the Attorney General. You said investigators in your office have been working on these issues for 3 years, but you also said the former Attorney General and former Governor were asleep at the wheel on this issue. If it's been being worked on for years, it would sound like they're doing something. Can you talk more about
Well, yeah,
that?
I think this is the difference between the line lawyers and the staff at my office who've been working their hearts out on this issue, who've been screaming from the rooftops about this issue, trying to get the leadership of the Attorney General's office and the leadership of Access to shut down the money. So we've been prosecuting, and we've been investigating, and our guys were telling the various officials inside Access, you must do something to shut down the money, or we cannot solve this problem. You can't prosecute your way out of this problem, because what was happening was we would stop one of these bad actors, but then they would open up a new LLC and start billing Access under the new LLC. And so we would tell the Attorney General's staff, lawyers, investigators would tell Access about this, and Access for 3 years refused to do anything about it. I mean, I think this is what you get when you have a governor who doesn't care about government. This is what you get when you have a governor who didn't care about governing. And so, you know, I want to be clear as well, and I'm sure my agents will want me to say this, that the Office of Inspector General, OIG, inside of Access was also raising alarm bells within Access about this, to no avail. The director of Access under Governor Ducey did nothing to stop the money flow.
Okay, one more quick follow-up. You said the former governor's administration was negligent at best. Are you suggesting someone needs to be held criminally or legally accountable for allowing this to continue?
Let me just say that our investigations are going to be ongoing, and I'm not taking anything off the table. We'll take evidence as it comes into us.
All right, Stace.
What, for the governor, please, just a point of, I guess, clarification about the audit that will be ongoing. That will be all claims made to Access, or just specific to this issue that we're talking about here today? And then can you say why you're auditing only since 2019? Why not go back farther?
I'm actually gonna let Director Torres take this one.
It is a comprehensive forensic audit of our whole system. And we're going back to 2019 because, as Attorney General Mays pointed out, that's when the trends started, and based on that data point, we think that's when we need to take a closer look at what happened and get some answers.
Is it fair to say, is the audit of claims made to Access or of a broader system?
There are two ways to bill Access. You can bill Access directly, or we manage the majority of our program and our membership under managed care. We're not auditing managed care through this audit. We're managing the claims that come directly to Access.
That gets, come back here, gets the question. Access is a prepaid capitated program. This is strictly a problem with the IHS fee-for-service program. So we're talking about Native Americans, whether on the reservation, off the reservation, homeless, or something like that. But this doesn't affect, 2 million, whatever, I didn't look at the report this morning, regular Access recipients and any of their services, as I understand it.
We're conducting investigations under managed care as well. We don't think the problem is as large there. Based on data and everything, the managed care organizations caught on to the fraud and made changes in their systems. And it's really targeted to that fee-for-service program where the claims come directly to Access and manage the American Indian Health Program.
Which raises an interesting question, and this may be way above your pay grade and everyone else. Is there a way of the categorical eligibles under the IHS into managed care system so you don't have? I mean, in 1982, the reason they didn't do, and Chris remembers this, the reason they didn't do original Medicaid was fee-for-service. Was there a way of taking this out of fee-for-service to a managed care system where you've got somebody doing oversight?
The changes that we're implementing right now are the first phase. It's going to be a comprehensive change. It's going to take reform, and a change like that is going to take advisement of our tribal leaders and tribal health directors and consultation with access. But I'm looking for solutions such as that so that we have a program that is better built to serve the community and give them the services that they deserve.
Right there.
Attorney General Mays, this is for you. Besides,
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Commissioner, coming into the podium. I was going to direct this question to you. You talked about the LLCs, wanting to shut them down. They're just like those phone centers, it sounds like. You shut down phone centers, more will pop up. So how do you deal with that? How do you get control of the situation? How are these rules going to address that situation? You shut down one, and another one's going to pop up, and then you have a potential problem here.
Sure, and I think that what's so important about what Access has done today is that they have taken the 12 or 13 recommendations that my agents, and I want to recognize them. I know you guys are going to hate me for this, but Special Agent Danny Miller, Assistant Attorney General Brett Moranis is here, and the Director of our HICVA section, Steve Duplessis. What Access has done in their recommendation is they have shut down the codes that were being abused, that were being built. So the money supply is no longer there, essentially. Now, have we plugged all of the holes? Perhaps not. This may be a process that plays out over two weeks, maybe a month. But we put cement in a lot of holes. And so what happened on May 3rd actually was Access started doing this. And our team actually, and they and our team started beta testing this to make sure we would ping those codes to make sure that if a fraudulent biller tried to bill against those codes, they wouldn't get the check. They wouldn't get through. So that is ultimately the answer, is by essentially shutting down those codes that were being used. And what was happening was, you would just build a code and be sent by Access a physical check. And you can imagine that makes it even harder for law enforcement to trace the money. So these are very antiquated systems at Access that they are now in the process of shutting down and reforming. And so, again, I think this is going to assist these legitimate behavioral health providers in doing the good work that they do.
Attorney General, bottom line, at the end of the day, you know that there are people that are dying in these homes. And besides prosecuting healthcare fraud, we get messages from family members all the time losing loved ones after disappearing. What can you say about holding the people accountable, running these homes where people are dying all the time?
Yeah, well, and I meant it when I said we are going to prosecute these people to the fullest extent of the law. And I've had conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Restaino and the FBI as well about this. If we have evidence where individual operators of these facilities are negligent for people dying, we've also heard reports of rapes that have occurred inside these homes. That will also be investigated by the proper law enforcement officials. This is tragic. What has happened is tragic and outrageous. And I'll just speak for myself as the Attorney General of the state. I believe the state of Arizona owes our tribal nations an apology. I do. I believe the state of Arizona owes our tribal nations an apology. And certainly especially the last administration that oversaw these frauds.
So I'm not sure who this would go to, but you guys have mentioned that there is going to be a hotline to help individuals. In what way is that going to help the indigenous communities that are being targeted? Do you have people actively going in to these communities, targeting these individuals, or even picking them up at bus stops outside IHS, and you have families who have been shipped down here, who have no way of getting home, who have no way of contacting their family members, and now are stranded in Phoenix? they're not gonna know about these updates, they're not gonna know about these hotlines, so in what way is this going to help them?
Thank you. That's a great question. The hotline is meant to problem solve some of those things you listed. So we are doing two things at Access. We are reaching out to members that have been affected by the groups that have been suspended. We can pull their names through claims data, their contact information, and attempt to reach them. That's not the only way, because they will be hard to get a hold of. A lot of times cell phones have been taken away, or they'll be hard to reach, or contact information has changed from our system. So we cannot rely on that outreach effort alone. Promoting the hotline is the way that we want to get the word out, through law enforcement, through advertisement, through community advocacy. Please help us do that. The hotline is going to navigate needs, and those needs are very individual depending on the person's circumstance. Their tribal affiliation, the resources they might have, do they have a need for treatment? We need to assess the need for treatment. A lot of cases, people have been brought even from out of state into these schemes. So getting people back home, if that's what they desire, is part of what this hotline is going to manage. So it's 211, press 7, and they have been authorized with funding to be able to navigate transportation and temporary housing if needed. Housing, food, money, they were being used as incentives. They're not covered benefits under Access, but they were being used as incentives in order to recruit people here. So we have to be able to navigate folks back to their homes, if that's where they choose to go, or to services, if that's what they need.
Carmen, can I just add to that real quickly? We have been also in contact with law enforcement all across the valley, especially the valley, because this is where the largest concentration of these homes are, but also elsewhere in Arizona, Prescott, Kingman. And so we've provided a card to police officers who are working on a daily basis who may come across one of these homes. We've also been in touch with constables. One of my biggest concerns is that as these fraudsters realize they can't bill Access anymore and they run out of money, they may leave these homes. In some cases, we're talking about they're renting Airbnbs. They're renting homes. So they will probably take off and people in the homes. I'm worried about that. So we've let constables know, those are the folks who will be responsible for evictions, about the 211 program, about this. And I know the Navajo Nation, as Attorney General Ethel Branch mentioned, is going to actually have a physical command center here in Phoenix to help folks, and we will make sure that law enforcement is aware of that physical command center can take people in.
And there.
I'd like to pose this question to someone from the tribal community. You can talk specifically about an incidents that you know of involving some of these. What's come across your table, and what have you had to deal with directly or know of directly as it relates to folks?
Thank you for the question. I'm Senator Matafli. I represent Legislative District 6, which is Northeast Arizona. A year ago, a gentleman called me from Chinle, Arizona, communicating to me that he was missing his son, his adult son. And the report was that he was missing from the local grocery store parking lot. As the months went by, they called to communicate to me with much sorrow, with much anguish. I never spoke to the mother. So this continued, and I myself have received many reports, and I have addressed it to the former governors, to the former attorney general. Many of that was unheard, and then also to the former director of DES, because that's where I'm supposed to go through. But long story short, this went on all summer long. The community were organizing. There was funding that was being contributed. There was people out there searching. There was a flyer, a missing persons flyer for the Navajo Nation, and then also from NAMIS. And at the beginning of August, the mother called me, and I noticed that there was a change in her voice. And that change was, my son called me. I wanted to let you know that he communicated to me that he was picked up at the local grocery store at the parking lot, and he was down here in Phoenix. That, to me, is something that already triggered a line of questioning, and it just further substantiated all these claims of abuses. And from going forward from that point, I was able to communicate my goal of making sure that this is addressed in the incoming administration, in which case I connected with the campaign here and the campaign and other campaigns. So that's basically in a roundabout way. And really, we don't tell a lot of these tragic stories because it triggers other people. And so myself and my team, we don't tell the stories from a public point of view because we don't have resources out there to help individuals who may be triggered, but we continue to let them know that they can reach out to us and we can provide them resources.
Is that family reunited?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jerome Casey. I'm the Vice Chairman of the White Navajo Tribe. Our tribe has been impacted, and one of the stories that we have that we just had occurred recently was we were looking for my brother's little brother, and he had been missing. We haven't heard from him for a few months, and we were looking for him every weekend. Every time we're down here, we're looking for him. And come to find out last weekend that he had been gone since December 11th, and nobody knew about that, and nobody told us about that. So a lot of what was going on is they have made him change his documents to where we were able to reach him again. Those are kind of the incidents that we do see in the tribal area. Our numbers of death related to predatory treatment centers has gone up. As a tribe, we see that. So what White Navajo Tribe has done, last week we did a door-to-door campaign giving a lot of the literature out, prevention, and also on the 211 number out to community members. We went to over 3,400 homes last week. And that's the kind of things that we're doing right now. Our local tribals are down here also trying to mitigate the issues that we have with our tribal members and other tribal members that are out here. That's just one story that we have. There are other stories that tribal members are still missing. I just found out here in the past couple days that we have another relative of ours who has been missing since January 22, 2002. And we were looking for him. We don't know where his kids are at as well. And these stories continue to pile up. And we just always, as a tribal leader, my fellow tribal leaders are here, we're here to let everybody know that our tribal members are not for sale. And they are human beings and they are precious, and we'll do everything we can to see everybody come home.
Right there.
Lieutenant Governor Anton, if I could ask you a quick question. And you spoke to the health committee months ago when we spoke about your needs, losing your needs in Soda Living and other members of the community. Has that number increased from your community? Has it gotten worse? Can you talk about that issue?
To my ability, Monica Anton, Lieutenant Governor, we probably have about 4 or 5 that have been deceased in the Soda Living homes. They're older from fentanyl, and I'll just quickly share my story. We were at a missing and murdered Indigenous MMIWP in December. My phone kept going off, and during the meeting we were in for 4 hours, and I didn't recognize the number. It was my niece. She was calling because her sister was missing, and we got word that she might have deceased in the Solar Living home in Glendale. It took us 2 days to find her because what they're also doing is taking them straight to the mortuary instead of the coroner's. And that's currently happening where that is something that we have to be very cautious about with all of our tribal members. So it took us 2 days, and the people in the Solar Living room would not notify our family that she was deceased the day before. And there was actually a gentleman that had to jump out of the window, find somebody on the street, use the cell phone, and call back home. to get a hold of my cousin that she was already gone. That's just one story out of other stories in different hotels that they're keeping them in. Just this past weekend, the Hill River Indian community had our first sober living drive-through, just awareness of fentanyl and what they're doing, because they entice them with drugs to stay in there, alcohol, methamphetamine, to keep them in these homes. They entice them at gift cards. And so we did a walk. Our community member, she was in a hotel and deceased for 3 days before they decided to help her or help somebody. Kept knocking on the door, and this was on a place on Thomas Road and 32nd Street. So I'm glad to see that the movement is happening. Governor Hobbs putting us, the tribal leaders, to the table to tell our stories. And it's not just because it's my niece, there's other tribal nations, the White Mountain Patch, the Navajo Nation, the Crib Nation. The stories that are coming to us are, I just want to thank Senator Thackeray and Valara. When we first saw this, it just exploded, and where we're at today. But I feel very comfortable with the team that's behind us, and as much as we can to advocate for them, that is the true story, and I want to thank you for that question.
All right, thanks all. We're gonna do one last question, and then I'd like to open the podium to other members of the community who'd like to share stories.
Okay, this one could be maybe for the Lieutenant Governor or for President Correa, either way. Several folks today have spoken about a lot of the bad actors involved in what's going on. But I wanted to ask, as you move forward in addressing this issue, do you need to do something to ensure that individuals with real behavioral health needs don't have a more difficult time getting legitimate health services going forward?
Okay, just for the record, Mark Harvey, President for the Salt River community. You know, and I think that's where, as tribal leaders, we need to make sure our departments, our health and food services departments are involved. And I'll just share with you, I think a lot of the issues that we're facing were happening for a long time. You would see on social media, for example, pictures of vehicles in the community and questioning what were they doing there. And, you know, some would respond, well, they're delivering packages. So, you know, in rural communities, you kind of, some of you are probably asking me, how did this happen under your nose? And how can you don't know about family members that are missing? You know, in tribal communities, I hate to say that, the social issues that we face, a lot of times, we lose track of our family members. We always hope that they're okay, but we hear those stories about, and to be honest, in our community, it was brought forward by a community member that was involved in one, left the facility and came back and reported to our tribal council what was going on, and kind of opened our eyes to what was happening. But as far as providing services, those that want help, and that's what we want as tribal leaders, you can't tell somebody to quit what you're doing. But when somebody really wants help, that's where we as tribal leaders, I think, are stepping forward to say, we're going to provide service. And I'll say access is very important for providing services, if it's real service that we're getting. And that's what we're dealing with right now. There's a lot of fraud that's happening, and our members aren't getting the help that they need. But I think it really is going to come to the tribes with help. The need is there that we can provide. Thank you.
Are there other members who'd like to share stories here with the podium?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Timothy Navajo, and I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the Hopi tribe. I do want to thank everybody that's here, Governor Hobbs' leadership, Attorney General Mays, Director William. For too long, I believe Native Americans have been in the shadows of the bigger picture, and not enough light has been brought to some of the issues that we deal with. The Hopi tribe are located in northeastern Arizona, high up on the mesas, very rural and remote. And so getting resources out there is difficult. We've been making noise along with many of our tribal leaders, and those are the ones that really we want to thank, the tribal leaders. I want to thank the programs for making the noise, and especially those that were impacted for bringing this to the attention of leadership. It's, again, we've been in the shadows for far too long, and that's no longer going to happen. We see that shifting dynamics today. This has been a multifaceted approach to finding solutions to this matter. For Hopi, it's gotten so brazen where we've had, we call it the white band syndrome, the predatory recruitment happening directly at our IHS facility. We've had those that are out there recruiting. And it happened that one of our healthcare workers was doing her laps, getting her exercises in during her break. She was approached by two men and was being pretty aggressive in getting her into the van, even though she was a healthcare worker. They were telling her, "You need help. We know you do. We're going to take you to get help." She immediately left, walked into the facility, notified security. I was later informed by leadership at our healthcare facility that those two gentlemen, after reviewing video, were actually inside the facility looking to try to recruit some members. That's how it's gone. So from our tribe, we're mobilizing right now to find ways to actually prepare ourselves for the next steps that are taking place. And I'm glad to hear that these are finally taking place. I think there's still one of our programs that need to be part of this conversation with Governor Hobbs, and I think that's the Arizona Department of Corrections. I still feel that we need to be in the federal correctional system. We have those that are trying to reintegrate and re-enter society. I don't know who those contracts are with right now, but there are some that require transition and rehabilitation as part of their release terms. So it's another angle that I have been working along with the Vice Chairman from the Hopi Tribe, getting into the prison system to try to inform them, encourage hope that there's life after incarceration, but you have to be careful with what program you have to get involved with these days because of this situation. If they enter a facility where this kind of activity is going on, we've heard testimony about that before, about drug and alcohol in the facility. That's given our people no chance at re-entry. Recidivism, we want to reduce that rate also. So there's a lot that we still need to do. And the solutions are there. I see the thinking outside the box, way outside the box, really encourage you. So, again, tribal leaders, stay strong, stay positive. You know, we can do this together. We can make this far. Governor Hobbs and you and your team is getting the attention it needs right now, and we're grateful for that. So if I would have this, I would go.
Scoops Eric, good morning. I'm Ned Norris Jr., Tribal Chairman of the Navajo Nation. I do want to echo the words of appreciation that others have said for Governor Hobbs and her leadership at the Attorney General's office, leadership at the U.S. Attorney General's office, leadership at AHCCCS, and the efforts that they make, and the fact that they're listening to our concerns as tribal leaders on this particular issue. You know, we ourselves have begun to mobilize our tribal health department, who is primarily responsible for placement of tribal nations members in home facilities, but also to make sure that they are aware and involved in every aspect of what's being announced today. I recently saw on social media a photo of two individuals that were soliciting other tribal members, to get into a sober living home situation. And it was good that this tribal member that posted this item on social media took the photo but also warn the public, the Oakland public, that there are folks out there that are doing these kind of things. You know, this is a real tragic situation that we're having to deal with. And it's going rampant throughout Indian country in the state of Arizona. And it's leadership like this, the governor's office and others that have really begun to put this issue on the table and have begun to assist and helping us in dealing with the victims that are becoming, the persons that are becoming victims of this issue. So again, thank you, Governor Hobbs, thank you, Attorney General Mays, thank you for everybody here that's involved, and we look forward to a continued positive working relationship with this administration. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Governor Hobbs, Attorney General, Director. My name is Thomas Cody. I'm the Executive Director for the Navajo Division of Social Services. I'm also the Incident Command Center lead, along with Shadeja, Attorney General Branch. So my focus would be to our Navajo people. Our Navajo people here that live in Phoenix, our Navajo people that live back in Navajo. The was the image of the house, the other was the large in the Habo Nemo Ado Kadeza time. So I don't know what you get is the access of it is more for the high contact, the ARJ, yeah, Nasa. Then the Yakon and the KA, could you put a sneak out of the Bata Hayata needs the net or Ego Bata Hayago, Eben Na, but a Dikuto, a Tajdi or so keep a thought, Chapmanto, need Eben Na, keep A are there, the high cycle. If your relatives are down here, you should sit the house off net. 928-871-6821 Argent to the house. Other way, Dr. Nygren, President Dr. Nygren, in here, Snowy, Nikadi, Eben AC Protected Attorney General FL Branch designated Rhonda Toomey, though a could have been near Hadi Kayado, ECA, but now because I think and thank you for everybody, and thank you for the press. I think it's really important that we get our word out that our loved ones are heart. Although they're dealing with their demons, they still come home to us. And I truly believe that the governor is on the correct path of helping our people heal. On the flip side, access also needs to be held accountable for allowing this to happen for the last 3 years.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I think we have to call wraps, but thank you to all the guests. Thank you to the